if you buy a dried apricot in a store, it will be yellow. Whereas if you dry one yourself, doesn't matter how slow you do it or how quick you do it, it's going to be brown, not yellow. They'll put sulfur in them. They do this to prevent the color from changing, no matter what they say. I just wouldn't trust it myself. G'day everyone.
Hello everybody.
Today we're going to talk about dried fruit. We've been asked our opinion on that, so we're going to talk about what we think about dried fruit today. Yeah. So as you know, we're fruitarian. So dried fruit is fruit. That's true. Dried fruit is a fruit, but so is cooked fruit. Cooked fruit is a fruit as well. Frozen fruit is a fruit as well. Obviously, the ideal is always to eat ripe, as closely picked from the tree as you can, really. That's the ideal. But I've laid it clear in the ethical food tower, which I created in my books. At the very top, we've got fruit. At the very bottom, there's the basement foods, which is basically animal flesh and animal secretions. And a little bit above that, you've got grains and monocrop cereal stuff and that there. But at the very top is fruit. And I didn't really expand much on that, but I have said fruit, the ideal is to be growing it yourself, to have it in your own garden, and to eat from your own trees. But if you have an abundance, then you go for periods of time where you don't have any fruit at all, then it may be an idea to preserve it in some way. And full disclosure, we do that. There are times when we have an abundance of fruit from the garden, like mangoes or jackfruit, and we can't eat them all, so we freeze them. And a few years ago, we decided that we would try to dry some fruit as well. So we bought ourselves a small dehydrator, and we started using it to dry some fruit that we had surplus of, too much of, thinking it'd be good to have it preserved in times when we don't have much fruit. And we hardly touched the stuff. We dried a lot of bananas, we dried tomatoes, we dried jackfruit, we dried a whole bunch of different fruit, and we ate a little bit of it, but really not much at all. It wasn't something that appealed. So we're not fully against the idea of eating it. We do understand it has its place. We do understand that if you're going to do some pilgrimage and going to be walking for days, it will be easier to have dried fruit in your backpack than filling it up with oranges, which are really going to weigh you down. So dried fruit, yeah, it's got its place. It's not ideal, but it's got its place.
Yes. Well, true is, that's a good point. If you need to go somewhere, like people climbing mountains, they usually take such stuff like dried fruit and nuts because it doesn't weigh much. But there's a catch. Those things make you more thirsty because depending on how the fruit is dried, so is the nuts in this case. You know, it's also the process itself. It indicates the quality, because if you dry fruit on a too high heat, so it's too fast, that's done commercially, and also the chemicals are added to it just for the sake so it can be on a shelf the longest time possible.
Yeah, so yeah, it's very true, because when we got our dehydrator, we read the manual a little bit, not much. I'm not much into reading manuals, but we looked at it a little bit, and we set it on the lowest heat possible and left it for the longest. So when we dried the fruit, it was dried for 24 hours rather than 6 hours or 12 hours, however long it takes. People generally, when they're drying fruit to sell commercially, they want to get through that process as quick as possible because it's like a production line. So when you buy fruit which is dried, it's obviously going to be less ideal than something that you're able to dry at your own pace at your own home.
Yes. I believe if you dry fruit at a very low temperature, the idea is on the sun, but you know, we have here so much insect, and I don't want to get into details, but we decided to buy the good dryer and do it that way, then on the sun.
I would also add, though, that in some cases the sun can be so hot that if you're sun drying it, it will dry it quicker and hotter than if you've got a dehydrator in your own home that you're controlling the temperature of. So I don't think it's always the best to be drying by the sun, because you'll be really cooking it.
Yeah, and that is very good point, especially now, you know, the sun is getting more aggressive. I don't know if it's in a place where you live, but here in the Australian tropics, it's definitely true. Like if the sun at some days burning like fire, it's not usual heat from the sun. You know, I'm on the sun, I love sun often throughout my life, and this is only last few years occurred. So I believe the longest you can take to dry the fruit, but not risking it may start getting over, you know. It's the best quality, because if you do it slowly, the juice doesn't have a time vaporized, but he would more that the juice stay in the fruit and change into more like syrupy consistency. Not even syrupy, more like concentrated. That's what I try to say. So actually, therefore, the dried fruit we made taste just really beautiful. You know, my mom, she used to buy commercially produced dried fruit. I never was in a dried fruit, but she was. And sometimes she will offer me a bit. And I may take like one piece and don't even finish it, because I could taste the chemicals in it. It didn't taste natural to me. But when I taste the ones we made here at home, it was totally different story. I could not believe how beautiful that dried fruit is. And even it's so yummy, I don't get attracted to it. I have it very rarely. And if I have it, I'll just want maximum 3 pieces of bananas. I cut them lengthwise. I find that's better. That keeps more that kind of good banana moisture in.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, she has a point, because they do, as well as drying them at too high a heat, the commercial ones, they'll put sulfur in them. And they do this to prevent the colour from changing. So if you buy a dried apricot in a store, it will be yellow. Whereas if you dry one yourself, doesn't matter how slow you do it or how quick you do it, it's going to be brown, not yellow.
Orangey brown.
Orangey brown colour. More brown, I think.
Yes, yes.
So I definitely wouldn't advise you getting commercial dried fruits, no matter what they say. I just wouldn't trust it myself. I wouldn't trust what they're saying. And I also want to add that no matter how slowly you dry it, it will still, in a way, be akin to cooked food, because you'll notice that the instinctive stop is missing afterwards. Like if you were sitting down eating mangoes, you will reach a point where you feel like either you don't want them anymore, or it could be that your tongue doesn't like the taste of them anymore. And at this point, that's when you would stop eating them. But when they're dried, it's easy for people to just keep eating them, rather like chocolate or something. So in that sense, it's not ideal, but it's still fruit. It's still something which is doing less harm. I mean, obviously the dehydrator is using electricity. It's not ideal in that sense, but you're still causing a lot less harm than you would do with many other kind of foods.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's not a food you can have a meal of. And as Mango said, if you open bag with dried fruit and you can't stop, that's indication it's cooked. Okay.
Somebody's biting my bum.
You get yourself comfy.
You're gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's dried fruit is not ideal, but I think it's in a way ideal if we in a survivor mode. When, you know, we already a few years back had a time, we never do that, me and Mango, but a lot of people were stocking up on a food which lasts for a long time, you know. And most of those people, they cook, so they would buy rice and what have you. But for us, raw food people or fruitarians too, it's really good to have storage, the dried fruit, because if you have a good quality made by yourself, of the good quality of fruit, because also the quality and flavor of the fruit indicates the final product of dried fruit. So you can actually storage it for, I don't know, we have some stored already for like 4 years because we hardly eat it and we give it to guests. And I had just, say, 2 months ago, one dried banana. And I think it's even better because they're not dead. And if they well stored, they still like maturing. You know, they're getting much nicer in a taste. Something palatable.
Yeah, no, he's the one going in the nest. I'm watching him go in.
Den är krasna.
Yeah.
I love those birds.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so again, I advise just try it, you know, if you don't want to invest in a dryer. Some people may use also the oven on a very low heat with a little bit open door. So you just search a little bit. There's a different way how you can dry fruit, and depends on your environment, what you can be able to do. Just try it for yourself and see what you think. You know, some people may tolerate a bigger amount. I can't tolerate much. And I never was attracted to dried fruit. Mainly, I really most preferable I have fresh fruit, fresh raw fruit. So another thing, you want to say something?
Yeah. But we're getting a little bit distracted at the moment because there's a finch. He's picking up little bits of twigs or whatever he uses, and he's flying and he's building a nest right above the archway of the entrance onto the balcony. If you stick your hand up, you'll touch his nest. They've been building a nest there for some years now, so you're just walking under his nest when you're going outside. Anyway, I wanted to add also that I know for myself that if I eat dried fruit, which I never do much of because it really doesn't hold much appeal to me anymore, but if I do that, I mostly will chop up a little bit of it and put it into my salad. So I'll get like a dried tomato and I'll chop it small and put it in my salad. But I noticed that all it takes is 1 or 2 bits of dried tomato or maybe a little dried banana, and the next day my sinal passages start to become blocked. And that's because my body is working really well and it's sort of rejecting things very, very quickly. I think that this is how the body works when it's clean. Most people, I think, would be able to just sit and munch on them and not feel that experience at all. It's not like I get a really blocked nose. I mean, I'm still able to sleep at night, I'm still breathing through my nose. But generally speaking, throughout the day, my nasal passage is extremely clear. I can breathe. It's like I'm cosmic breathing, breathing in and out, in and out. No blockages whatsoever. But a little bit of dried fruit, and I start to feel the blockage. Enough to make me have to use a handkerchief every now and again and blow my nose.
Yes. Well, also I want to go back to when people go on some long hike and they may take with them nuts and dried fruit, but it's true, the real fruit is more heavy, but it has the most important thing, that's that juice. Maybe the grape juice would be best because it's fill you up more and for longer time, so you wouldn't need such a big amount. Because if you hiking, you're physically active, and if you eat only nuts and dried fruits, some people eat the dried seaweed, you're definitely going to get sooner or later thirsty. And if you have just fruit juice, you would not get thirsty. So you will have to take with you some extra liquid, which may even almost equalize the weight.
Yeah, the problem lies in how long you're going to be walking for. I mean, if you're planning on doing a 3-5 day, 1 week, 10-day walk, obviously, if you're taking fruit juice with you, you're going to have to drink it within the first 24, at least within the first 48 hours. It's not going to keep after that. So whereas dried fruit obviously will keep the whole time, you wouldn't have a problem with that. And you would maybe passing by a river, you can fill up your bottle with water. So it really does depend. If you're just walking for a few hours on a day, then just take with you fruit juice and don't bother with any dried fruit. But if you're planning a longer walk, which is a great thing to do, I'm a firm believer in that everybody should go walkabout at least once in their life. And by walkabout, I mean just gonna get out there, do something that's different, and lose yourself in by not really having a clue what you're doing. Just walk in, get on a bicycle, even a van, even living a van life for a while, and not really knowing what you're doing and where you're going to go. I think that this is an important part of everybody's life that everybody should do. The majority of us don't, but I think it's something that we should be doing.
Yeah, it's a great experience to actually learn. Even if you don't have nothing, I actually end up fully empty-handed as far materialistic things goes. Almost empty-handed. Few times in my life, I learn I don't have a worry about nothing, because things slowly will come, and I always have what I need. I never struggled with hunger or anything like that, because also we can survive only on a little bit of food if needed. So, as Mango said, if I went out for a hike for just a day, I would not eat. I would only take a little bit of fruit juice in a case I feel I need something, some boost. I would have a just sip on that juice. So,
I think we answered the question. I think we'll leave it for that for the day.
yeah.
So we'll say goodbye for today. Goodbye from me.
And that's goodbye from me. So, don't forget about love. Love is most important thing you can have in your life. And till next time, we love you and take care. Bye.